Hi guys, welcome to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we're back with our patch 2.4a tier list. Now, because a lot of things have changed in patch 2.4a, I felt that this is a really good time to do a sort of a restart on the tier list wherein I explain literally every pick of the tier list so that you guys know why each person is where it is, or each champion I should say. And but I did realize that that would cause the video to be extremely long. Now the last one I did was close to an hour. I believe it was about 50 minutes. So I decided to split it up into 5 different videos this time, just so that it's easier to watch and it doesn't seem like an intimidating 1 hour long video. So of course we're gonna go from top down. So we're gonna start off in the Baron lane. So first up we have the S plus tier where we clearly have Gragas and Fiora. Now Gragas, honestly, he's just very versatile. He has a couple of builds he can go. He can go for full AP if needed. Like if your team already has like another tank, or your team is tanky in general. Like there are other bruisers or other tanks. Like maybe you have an Amumu jungle. Maybe you have a Leona support. So you can go for AP Gragas in the Baron lane. Although AP Gragas is not as good as Tank Gragas and Hybrid Gragas, which is the 2 other options that you have. So you can also go for a full tank Gragas build like with Grasp, although Grasp did get nerfed. But you can also go for full tank Gragas, which is doing really well, because Gragas, he naturally has damage, so even going for a tank build, you're still going to be putting in some damage. And his hybrid build is really fun as well, where you are really tanky, but you also build like 2 damage items, so you will be tanky but do damage at the same time. So Gragas to me is the best Baron laner, followed by Fiora. Now we all know that Fiora is has been like one of the top Baron laners for the past like couple of patches, or even not couple of patches, but the past like maybe 10 patches or so. So Fiora only got a 40 HP nerf, which is honestly pretty inconsequential. Now Fiora is probably the best one-on-one champion in the game. So if you have mastered Fiora, if you're really good at Fiora, I would say you win 95% of one-on-ones. Of course, 5% being where the opponent outplays you or you make a mistake. But generally, you should be winning every one-on-one if they're on equal terms. And sometimes you can even beat 2-on-ones just because of how broken Fiora is. Although you can guarantee a lead for yourself, but you cannot always win the game off it, because Fiora's main win condition is split pushing, and split pushing isn't too good on Wild Rift. Oh, another thing I should add before going too far into the tier list is that this tier list I've reorganized to solely reflect solo queue. So sometimes I did actually consider a little bit of pro play when it comes to this kind of tier list, but honestly there's no real good reason to balance solo queue and pro play, because honestly, pro players wouldn't need a tier list anyway. They already know what's good, so I'm just going to balance it solely for solo queue. So, we're going to move on to the S tier. So, S tier we have populated with 5 champions. First up, the best being Camille. Now, Camille just got a nerf on her Hextech ultimatum, as well cooldown, as well as her hookshot stun duration, which are both they do hurt her quite a bit. But if you're good at Camille, it shouldn't really affect you too much. Now, the thing that they did not touch is her damage, especially her damage on her Q, which is what makes it really insane, because it is true damage. So, of course, having a shorter stun duration and a longer cooldown ultimate will affect her quite a bit. However, she still is really strong, and strong enough to be in the S tier. Now, Malphite, really straightforward, really simple. Normally, you build tank on him. You have a really free laning phase. Basically, all you have to do is, if you don't have a favorable matchup, you just stay back, don't do anything, farm minions under tower, and you're not that easy to dive as well. I mean, granted, at the early stages of the game, you're pretty squishy, you're not so tanky, but you're not that easy to dive. And if you have a alright matchup, all you do, or a favorable matchup, all you do is you step up and press your Q, step up and press your Q, and your opponent is going to get poked out. You have a point and click poke ability. So basically you have a free laning phase with Malphite, and after you transition onto the mid and late game, you have a amazing teamfight tool, which is your ultimate, your unstoppable force, which is really hard to dodge. Like, to react to dodge a Malphite unstoppable force is really almost impossible. It's really hard to dodge it unless you predict it or you know that it's coming. Now Renekton, really strong Baron laner. It's probably one of the best one-on-one champions as well, up there with Camille and Fiora. After he got his buff on his Q, which most people, including myself, thought it wouldn't affect him too much. Turns out that that buff actually basically made him S tier. Now, he was never really S plus tier, but he is still really strong. He's basically a really good bruiser. He can soak a lot of damage but deal quite a lot of damage at the same time. Now, his healing on his Q is not as insane as in League PC. If not, he would definitely be in the S plus tier. His healing is really stunted because it does not scale off AD, unlike the League PC variant. However, he still is really strong. He has gap closers being dashes. He has AoE with his Q and heal with his Q. He has a point and click stun on his E, and his ultimate just makes him super duper tanky. So next we move on to Garen. Now this is Tank Garen, not Bruiser Garen. So Tank Garen is still the best form of Garen. So building damage or building bruiser still is not the way to go. Now they did nerf his damage and add AP scalings, but honestly, at that point in time, Garen's damage was just broken. So now Garen's damage is actually balanced. You're not going to be wrecking people with your damage. However, if you go for the tanky build, you're still going to be super duper tanky. You don't even need to recall because your passive can heal you up. And you can basically just be a meat shield for your team. And the best part is that you cannot be ignored, because if you are ignored, you can spam those silencers, keep spinning, doing damage, and eventually you're going to get someone low enough for you to execute them with your judgment ultimate. So Garen is still really strong, and so is Riven. Now Riven, honestly, I have not ever put in the S tier, but I have now, because honestly, if you are a good Riven and you have mastered Riven now, honestly, in some elos, you don't even have to animation cancel properly. You just need to know her combos. But in higher elo, if you know how to animation cancel, that will put you to the next level. So Riven really is really strong, even in like 2-on-1s where she can like stun everybody and knock up everybody with her Q and her W as well. Her shield is giant on her E, and she has AoE as well on her ultimate. She's just really very strong, and if you know how to play her, she just basically is really very good, up there with the rest of them. Now next we have a couple of interesting ones. So we have Jax. Now Jax just got buffed, where he stacks twice and can go up to 10 stacks on his attack speed. Now this really benefits him in the top lane because he can stack off minions, so when you're basically just CSing or pushing, you will automatically stack up. So enemies shouldn't be fighting you when you're like hitting minions and all, because you already have free stacks from that. So Jax, however, can engage with his Q and stun them with his E, so he can actually force the engage on them while you're farming minions. So this could lead to a lot of good trades with Jax in lane, and overall, it's just really strong. Jax is pretty a more of a stat-stick champion like Garen, so if he's doing well now, which he kind of is because of the latest buffs, then he will be in pretty good shape. Now for Graves Baron lane is a newly added addition to the tier list. Now this was ever since the 2.4 items and his buff. Now he did recently get a nerf in the latest patch 2.4a. However, that nerf it only loses in 15 AD at max level. Of course it does hurt, but he's still really strong. Now he has a lot of different builds that he can go. He can go for like an Essence Reaver kind of build. He can go for Essence Reaver into Storm Razor into IE. Or you can go for a Bloodthirster first item, or there was another build for him. I believe it was a Navori Quick Blades first item into more crit, of course. So he has like 3 different builds that he can go, and all of which are viable. Although I do believe in Baron lane, maybe like Navori Quick Blades build will be better. I think that the or Essence Reaver build, but I think that the Bloodthirster build is a little bit more for the jungle. However, I don't know. I don't really play Graves, so I can't really say too much. But what I do know is that he's really strong. He has really good wave clear with his Q and his basic attacks. Then he has a lot of sticking potential, especially against quite a bit of immobile characters. Of course, the top tier characters like Gragas, if you're aside, you would say like Garen and Renekton and Malphite and Jax are relatively immobile, so you can kind of chase them if need be. But he is still pretty strong in the Baron lane at the moment, which I find quite surprising, to be honest. Now for Akali and Irelia, basically they are really good champions at the moment. In mid lane they will be pretty much top tier. However, in Baron lane it's way harder because of Akali's mini rework / nerf / adjustment. She really can't do very well into Baron lane champions because they're mostly like bruisers or tanks, so she can't really find early game kills to snowball, whereas in mid she can. So that's the only reason why she's in A tier. I think Akali is a top champion at the moment, but she's just not good in Baron lane. Same case with Irelia. Irelia probably has a better shot than Akali at solo killing a Baron laner, just because of how she can stack her passive and get a lot of attack speed. And if the enemy team doesn't respect that and you full combo their Baron laner, then it could actually lead to some kills and some snowballs. But other than that, she is of course way better in the mid lane where it's a lot easier. However, even much below them is Darius. Now, honestly, maybe Darius could rank a bit higher since this is solo queue, but I find that at this point in time, maybe half the people know how to play against Darius already. They know not to let him stack, and not too many people are getting wrecked by him. Honestly, I don't know if that's because I'm in high elo or what, but I don't think that Darius is that good anymore, especially after all the nerfs that he got. Of course, he did get buffs as well, but he got quite a bit of nerfs as well. So Wukong, honestly, his laning phase is not really too good in Wild Rift. He's more of a jungler in Wild Rift, but his Giant Teamfight ultimate still warrants him putting in the A tier. Like, Wukong's ultimate is just insane. So that's pretty much why he's there. Lucian just got nerfed. He's pretty much the same story as Irelia and Akali, but just worse. So he is not very good at killing anybody in the Baron lane, where this is his strongest phase. Which is his early and his mid game. Of course, he can actually kind of try to harass them quite a bit, but it is pretty dangerous because most of them can fight back. Like Fiora, Gragas, Camille, they can all fight back. Renekton, they can all fight back. So it is really not the best role for him, but he's still a pretty good champion in general, which is why he's in the A tier. Now onto the B tier, Pantheon. Honestly, he's just... honestly, I don't rate Pantheon too highly just as a champion. He has been getting a lot of buffs. Not recently, but ever since his release. And most of the time, it looked like the buffs would help him, but it eventually didn't really. So Pantheon, unless you're really good at him, I don't really think it's a good pickup. Tryndamere, honestly, is not too bad now. He's no longer like in the F tier. Tryndamere with his new like Solari Charge Blade first item build, he's actually pretty I won't say he's pretty insane, but he is honestly alright, which is why like, he's in B tier. Like B tier is like alright. He's alright in the Baron lane. Now Vayne is a pretty interesting one. Of course, the items have benefited her a lot, like really a lot. But Vayne is really only good into counter pick matchups, like Vayne against Malphite, Vayne against Garen, Vayne against like Mundo. You know, Vayne against Jax maybe, you know. If the enemy team has someone that Vayne is good into, Vayne probably is higher than B tier, but B tier is just general because some of her matchups are incredibly bad. Like, Vayne into Fiora isn't good, Vayne into Camille isn't good, so it really depends on your matchup. Olaf, just a decent Baron laner in general, nothing too special about him. Kennen, just there for his Giant Tifa ultimate. Honestly, Wukong does a better job than Kennen, which is why Kennen is pretty low down compared to Wukong. Mundo with his recent buffs. Honestly, I didn't think Mundo was that bad originally, especially picking him into magic damage enemy team. And I did think he was actually decently tanky even against the physical damage. But now that he got so much buffs, I do believe he's at least like in the B tier where he can just be a meat shield and soak up a lot of damage, basically. Now, Teemo, he can honestly be good if you are really good at him and if you know all his matchups really well. But in general, I just don't think Teemo is very good. And if your opponent is just as good as you really aren't going to get the job done. Rengar, after his nerfs, not too hot anymore. Way better in the jungle. In the Baron lane, same story. Way too many tanky people. No one to assassinate. He has to go for more of like a bruiser style build in the Baron lane. He can't really go for one-shot build, which is what makes him really good. He's not that good in sustained fights. Nasus takes way too long to stack. That's why he's not viable, because by the time he actually gets to somewhere useful, most of the time the game is over and done with. Singed, just a really weird playstyle. Nothing too special, nothing too good about him. Singed relies more on the opponent not knowing what they're doing, even more so than Darius. Because if your opponent knows their flip, they won't come near. If they know what your gas does, they won't walk in it, they won't chase you. So really, Singed relies more on opponent being dumb and not knowing what Singed does to really benefit. Yasuo and Zed, it's just Irelia and Akali and Lucian just turned up all the way up to like 11. They are horrible in the Baron lane just because their matchups are so bad. They're never going to assassinate anybody and they will never snowball, which is what these two both need to do to carry the game. So that's it for Baron lane. In the next one, we're going to cover, of course, the jungle. So, thank you guys for watching the video and goodbye.